We're the first course to show our work and the work we are going to do this year with the interprofessional studio, leading to a postgraduate diploma in spatial performance and design. We're the only course in the school who invites non-architects to join us to build a series of applied projects and events throughout the year. It's always 3 events throughout Europe or the world this year actually, where we have done so far since our existence 5 years ago when we started 15 projects and constructions with that. We are a course which has a huge amount of tutors and consultants. One of our tutors is here, Andy Dean, music producer. But as you can see, we have so many other kind of fields involved as well, from choreographers to dance, with dance of course, engineering as well, but experts from almost all kinds of creative backgrounds. Whatever we need in order to bring a project forward, we involve into the teaching process. But as well, the students should come from different backgrounds, and every year people who join us are people who understand themselves more as one discipline. So they are often architects and choreographers and designers and interaction designers. And they become at the same time teachers in their own expertise, but have to work outside their comfort zone and being a student of all the other fields we work in. So on purpose, all these projects actually have always a very wide span and are designed in a field of, we call it out of thick air. So we grasp opportunities, we try to find the right partners worldwide and bring projects forward which otherwise would never have the chance to come alive, because they come in situations, in cities and areas where often the opportunities are limited, or things are so new that nobody really has done it yet. And if you bring this intense networking together, you can produce things otherwise would never happen. This is just an overview of how usually a year is designed. This year our project is going to be Berlin, New York and Barcelona. We have always 3 different scales of projects, whereas the first one is a tryout. A lot of partners can be tested, new partners as well for the coming years later. And things are brought together in such a way that they can be altered at any moment as well. You can see which things are working in the wider audience, how it's feasible to do, and establish the networks as well for the next event. The second event is usually the biggest of all, but needs as well the most care. We have to fundraise for it, especially if something like New York comes up. If it doesn't work, we have to always find alternatives along the way, which should never be a kind of a compromise and less interesting. It's just have to shift in order to become as interesting in different locations. But this event is already rehearsed, and by the time the first one is happening, we know how we can shift towards this. And the last one is then to recap. It's again a bit smaller than the one before, but there are so many things you have to kind of retest, see how they worked, or the things that didn't work at all, or establish again new networks and lock into it. For example, this year we went as a final event to be an associated project of the Lisbon Triennale. This year what's different is that rather than having just projects building up on to each other, we have the spin-offs, so the projects should stay on location and develop in parallel to the events we take forward, so that you have always a comparative study as well for your own development and the local networks you're plugged into, how they develop the thing further. We just came back literally 2 weeks ago from Lisbon for the opening of the Lisbon Triennale, which was our final summarizing event of this year. We had 20 different artists involved. We had 4 days of events, from dance to music to workshops with a bunch of local interest groups and people, and of course as part of the Lisbon Triennale. There were installations which are very much just dealing with the very place, a sound installation where you could hear the memories and things like that. But of course there were as well the dance events which emerged from the previous events in Madrid. So a lot of things could be tested quite interestingly, how in a bigger framework like a triennale, where obviously everything is even much more chaotic than if you come on your own, how you can plug into something, how you actually can, as a network, overlap with other networks. And for example, one of the co-creators was Liam from the school as well, and there were a lot of interesting kind of connections as well. One of our dancers of the New Movement Collective was a choreographer for them, and so on. So actually you can start seeing how the networks throughout Europe in this kind of creative field start merging. This is like one of the little projects within it. It's a kind of rainbow dress, so it's as well, they test technologies of things they wanted to test all year before, but we were always inside, so you never could actually work with natural situations. So finally we could do this because it was a wonderful kind of backyard and outside space, which was very good actually as an end of the year project. But as you can see, it's always a huge team of students and collaborators, dancers, musicians you can see here, and as well the head of Triennale was with us here. The biggest event this year was probably the one at the Matadero, where we have been for the 4th or 5th time. It's an old slaughterhouse area which is converted to the biggest creative center in Europe. I want to say it's 150,000 square meters or something like that. Exhibition space next to exhibition space, but as well a very full program. Every day there's something going on, and a lot of people stream through this. So we plugged into there and had our event, which was called Flow Fields, and created a kind of festival around us with that. So there were from visual VJ kind of projects with interactive kind of skin, which is this kind of body landscape. It's called one of the sub-projects of the project. Where when people streamed through the exhibition space, actually had a reaction of the projections within this field, to concerts of local music groups, which had a whole afternoon and performed within the space. We could, because the number of people they wanted was much smaller, and in a big space like that it's usually impossible, we could use actually our installations to limit the space and give it a kind of surrounding for it. And our own flow field performance, we had 3 of them, including a film session, where from the outside to the inside was a stream of 6 dancers this time and 8 musicians, working with our students to create the choreography, the music and everything. Everything we do is bespoke, so it's only for the events itself. So the choreography is made for it, the music, and is always in very close collaboration of the with the students. Ideally, it's entirely kind of generated by the students, but the great thing of a professional network around you is if you don't come up to the professional standard, it will be lifted up to the professional standard by the network around you. So the basics are developed within the group, and then you have always something which is shifting because it's starting from a different point. If an architect does choreography, it's always weird at the beginning, but with the good choreographers, you can bring it up to the standard then, and they do something they wouldn't have done otherwise before as well. And yeah, this is I think the money shot we had from last year. The first one we did, because we always have to link as well to networks which help bring this projects about. So we worked with Rocker and the tile company, which had in all 3 locations galleries, and they supported us with their network with financial help, but as well helped to organize nice materials and things like that. We had dinners there. It's always part of this as well to involve, like we have always self-cooked and integrated networks with cooking, and invite local other creative people and have a kind of supper club with those people. Andy's one of the original inventors of, but integrating into a space like that, actually as a starting point, was very interesting. It was obviously totally over-designed, or Saha design, and then bring something in which is flexible enough to, and allow students to develop something was a very interesting and difficult task, especially if afterwards you go into a black box, so to make that transition in an interesting way. Previous year, we were as well at the Matadero, similar big event as a kind of marketplace. And that year we tried to dwell much on the kind of hardening situation of the creative disciplines in the area. So we did all these different events which involved, again, food and culinary experiences in order to bring in people and create new markets for them and new networks for them, which actually worked quite successful. The chef would work with us, is now head of or owns the canteen of Matadero. Because of this event, and so these kind of after effects we're really very much after. The first time we went there, I go a bit faster now. So we were supposed just to do a little event. It was the first of the 3 events, so it was supposed to be very small, but it became the opening of the whole site. So we came there with these inflatables, were done and designed by the students, completely sewn up as well by the students, which indicates another very interesting aspect of our course, because we don't have the normal aim of something just having to stand up, but having to be performative. We do things which usually would be wrong in engineering, for example, as a starting point. So if you make an inflatable, you usually wouldn't want to have this kind of small profiles and things like that. You wouldn't want to have that many scenes, but we wanted a performative piece where the dancers could go in between, can suffocate it, so make it move with them. Interestingly, in the end, it became so successful because we could entirely make it from leftover materials that it became the main exhibition piece of the engineer who worked with us. And it has been exhibited 10 times by now by all different players which helped us in the network. Inside there was the first bigger dance performance we did abroad. There were as well performances in Cologne, where we used the local industrial kind of installation, the scissor lift, for part of the performances with local musicians, which then formed as well different bands and so on and forth. It was in a very difficult area, which is kind of gentrified at the moment, so how you bring culture in without actually pushing out the old culture. So it was framed within a lot of kind of networks and workshops, how you carefully can bring in different forms of culture without having to bring like big supermarkets or things like they actually had planned in the area. All of these things are done to no or minimum budgets. I mean, all the budgets of these are around £5,000 maximum, and usually raised entirely through local things. But they have a value of up to 100,000 through venues. And in Matadero, they're up to $250,000, like from the value. If you would have to rent the space, be there for 2 weeks, and build something up, it would be usually impossible to do as a young creative. But because of the networking, you can get there quite easily. And we did one event already at the A, where it was the last of this series of that year, where we literally through the entire school had part of the performances, which will be kind of mirrored in the event next week on the 8th, you should hopefully come to. The inflatable became a canopy across the roof, and inside the representation room was a performance, and we just fitted something like 250 people, which the inflatables literally blow atop of their heads. But things like that you can do because it becomes so light, and but everything is very surprising. Just go through those. New Movement Collective, the dancers we work with, are now, I think, it's easy to say, the most hip dance group in London. They just did for Eric de Rijke the stairs in front of the Tate. They did in Testbed 2 performances already. They did in Nest down the road, the most hyped performance. And just yesterday, Jonathan Godin, who's one of our tutors, was named the dancer who's nothing short of brilliant in Britain. So we and they're the ones which always work with us and teach the students as well how to work with the things. So it's nice to work on this level of professionals, but they actually came about with us, and Tanja is going to start as well talking about that. So.
Yeah, so we started the whole program 6 years ago, and we were quite lucky, so we get a kind of EU fund, and we were, and in order to build this kind of huge interactive pavilion for the Bauhaus year, it was 90 years of the Bauhaus, so we were collaborating with Weimar, Jena, and then 5 other countries in Europe. For that point, we had to do that in 4 months' time, so it was a kind of making the impossible possible. It's a 400 square meter place for the audience, and it had to be low cost fast done, so in 3 months' time to produce, and the cheapest building they ever had built. To see, because we had to transport it to many of the locations because there were 5 different countries involved. So you could see the whole building, which is 400 square meter wide and has a 9.50 meter height, was packed in 2 different blocks. So one is 150 times 2, and the other one is 2 times 2 meters. So you could see we could even with 5 people handle the whole package. And we worked with Inflate. That was really great. That was as well this kind of, we had funds, but still we needed, of course, more funds. So Inflate funded half of the whole project itself because it was a kind of bespoke project. On that year, we collaborated as well with MTech. I guess MTech students are here as well. So it was a huge challenge in low cost and making a really great structure. As you can see, it has to be performative, so it was a kind of open theater, so you were standing on the stage and was opening up for some of the performances up to Jena, so you could see the size tower in the back, which is a bit dark. And of course we were linked to the kind of scenography festival, so it was up to 1,000 people involved in the whole festival. So we had open events outside the space, we had some events inside the space. So it's always important what kind of workshops we are heading to or leading as well. It's always about creative backgrounds. Then we went as well to Dessau, to the Bauhaus stage as well. So it was the whole year was related to Bauhaus and all the kind of countries which worked with the Bauhaus as well. One important thing as well, it had to be performative. So we had one night of projections as well. And one of the students built a kind of dress. As you could see, we have always a dress involved as well. It was an own inflatable, and you had to blow into a kind of nozzle. And that was the year of the flu. No, even the swine flu. So everybody was scared to blow into that. So the student came up with a kind of information piece. So you had on one point the kind of health and safety issues ordered, and of course you had the information as well, because it was the Jena theater is a bit outside the city, so she was a kind of mediator to bring all the kind of performative elements, the people, the actors back to the stage. So then we brought it as well to Hook Park, so that was a challenge as well, but as it was so small we could bring it to any country we wanted to do, and it's still in Weimar, so if anybody wants to use it, it's still available. That's the year after, so that's Covent Garden, and I only want to show it because it's a difference. So the first year was kind of highly funded, and then the year after we did not even had low budget, we had no budget at all. So we tried to get material which is not recycled, it's really leftover material. So we got from Hook Park this kind of outside crust of the wood, so it was as well at the end really performative. So you had kind of dark sides and white spaces as well. So that was really without no budget, only the screws we had to pay for. So that was really and Christina Smith, one of the council members, but really a great name for the school. She gave us the room as well. So it was a reluctant space for 10 years, not like it was all completely demolished, so to say. So there was no electricity, no water, so we had to rebuild everything in 1 month's time, and we had the whole space for 6 weeks. So we had 1 month of really performances, workshops in that space, and the time as well to build it up. So that was the first time we worked with New Movement with the dancers, and that was the point when they all formed a group. So because we needed a name for our publication, and they said, okay, we call ourselves New Movement, and they're really successful now as well. So always the space had to be, to give a space to get all the kind of local people involved as well. So we have many workshops, but then always in the evenings, performances. We had political talks. Andy had a talk with this political group called New Deal of the Mind. So we always, like in the culture, but in the political background as well. Here, as you can see as well, that was leftovers from CNC cut. So one of the students had to mark everything which was not cutted out as a kind of pattern. And we managed to do 35 chairs and 10 tables, plus the whole structure for the background for that space. So all the both spaces were 250 square meters big, and yeah, as well, without any budget, we managed to build the whole space. So these were the workshops. So every week or every morning there were workshops until 2, and then from 6 o'clock there were these events happening. There's Andy, as you can see, and then Richard Wentworth. He's our external examiner, one of the biggest sculptors in the UK. So you can see we have a big network. And David McAlmond, the singer, you will see as well on the 8th of October. He came into the space. I think at the beginning it was a bit weird for him because he was in the center and you could walk around, you could see this kind of peepholes you could look through. But then as well, like after an hour, we talked to him and he really felt well in the space and he really enjoyed it. And now he's always doing this kind of one-to-one talk with the audience as well. So he formed this kind of music performance as well now. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, what's clear to see in the whole overview that we always try to bring not only human networks together, but as well it was important to find possibilities, sources, resources that actually can be not kind of recycled, but like reused and reappropriated in different ways. And I think especially the recent projects, or the last 4 years actually, almost always we used material which otherwise would never be considered to be a material at all, but then actually found the highest quality of them. And these are the things which form this kind of overall actor network theory following principle, which is the main driver of the course. In short, it's a intense network bootcamp we're doing. And this one time a student said, I think that's a good summary to end of, this is the hardest job you ever have and you actually pay for it. So on that note, thank you.
Thanks.